Good evening. It's time for the business segment to join News Prime with me, Beverly Broohm. We begin from Washington, D.C. as the International Monetary Fund is projecting that Ghana's debt to GDP ratio will rise further to reach almost 99% by the end of this year. This was captured in a fiscal policy monitor report released on the sidelines of the ongoing IMF World Bank spring meeting. Joy Business correspondent George Riafe has the rest of the story.
Despite the ratio going up at the end of this year, the fund was optimistic that it will slow down to 93% by the end of 2024. However, one is not sure that the IMF did factor the domestic debt exchange program that government is currently undertaking and how that would impact on the debt numbers at the end of this year. This because government has maintained that the program will end up reducing the total debt stock significantly by the end of 2023. Some economists have also argued that the more than 500 billion Ghana cedis debt will reduce marginally in the first quarter of this year based on how the Ghana cedi has stabilized marginally against the US dollar. But a careful look at the report shows that it will indeed be going up by some 5% this year from the November 2022 ending data. It is not clear for now whether that will be influenced by the proposed slowdown in economic growth for this year or the fact that government may not be able to convince all the bondholders to restructure their debts. The Bank of Ghana, in its summary of economic and financial data report ending March 2023, pegged the value of Ghana's economy ending December 2022 as 616 billion Ghana cedis. However, when it comes to the total debt stock ending November 2022, was pegged at 575.7 billion Ghana cedis. The IMF in the fiscal monitor report has also classified Ghana as a low-income developing country. The move is coming at a time where there have been reports suggesting that based on Ghana's debt reaching unsustainable levels, Ghana has now returned to the highly indebted poor country status.
And of course, George Riafe joins me live on Zoom from Washington, D.C., USA. George, should we be worried or excited about this development?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Now, for instance, at the end of November in 2022, the debt stock was around 90, somewhere around 93 there, and now it's supposed to go up by about 5%. And so some people are again worried that what has happened to the debt exchange program, and we all thought that the debt exchange program should have rather resulted in some significant decline in our debt stock by next year. We're also not sure, or we cannot independently clarify or get confirmation from the IMF whether they did factor the debt exchange program and its impact on the economy. So for some might argue that, well, 5% growth in the debt numbers for this year might not be that much. So it means that, well, there's work being done to ensure that we contain our debt situation. Also, if you look at their projection into 2024, it is clear that the debt is going to come down to 92%. So there are some indications that, well, government is taking some steps to control the debt situation, and that could reflect in the numbers. And maybe that could send some signals to some people who have always been worried about our debt situation and whether enough has been done to bring it under control.
But it appears our debt situation is still a concern despite government undertaking this domestic debt exchange program.
You're right on that one. And if you convert this, the 575 billion Ghana cedis into dollar terms, that is quite high. Having your debt almost equal the value of the economy, that is high. And that is why some experts and even the IMF and the World Bank is also pushing for some cuts as well and how to contain and rein spending and reduce the borrowing. And maybe they believe that if government undertakes some of these measures, that might go a long way to bring the debt situation under control. So yes, you've done the debt exchange program, but there are some also arguing that still a lot can be done to contain the rise in debt stock to ensure that everybody will be comfortable.
But how are talks going with regards to Ghana's negotiations?
Well, in terms of the multilateral engagement and the bilateral talks as well, it appears to be going smoothly. But at the end of the day, whether it will move at government's pace or move in a way that could fast track the process for Ghana to go to the IMF board for them to approve its program request, it is still $1 billion question that we are yet to get some answers. So engaging some of these multilaterals and the multilaterals and then the partners, the bilateral partners, well, you get the sense that they are committed and they really want to help Ghana to stabilize the economy. So let's see how things take. The Paris Club engagement are also expected to have their first creditor meeting in the coming days. And so if you engage some of these creditors and what we are picking up, the indication is that it is progressing well. But let's see how those progressions will impact on Ghana meeting all the preconditions so they can go to the IMF board for its program to be approved.
George, before I let go of you, update me on the partial creditor committee.
And as I explained to you earlier on, that committee has been formed, and it's partial because China is not part of this creditor committee, and they are supposed to negotiate or kickstart negotiations with government on the possibility of restructuring Ghana's debts or possible cancellation of Ghana's debt. So after this creditor committee being formed, we understand that in the coming days, they will give some dates in terms of engage government on how they intend to deal with that debt stock, whether they will opt for it to be cancelled or rather they'll look at restructuring the debt so that they will vary the payment terms and the interest rates as well. So from what we are taking from our friends in the Paris Club, it is clear that they are committed to participating in Ghana's financing program, but that will start first with the first official engagement with the Paris Club members when it comes to Ghana's debt stock and what can be done.
Thank you so much, George Riafe. We'll leave it here. George Riafe is our correspondent in the Washington, D.C., USA, monitoring and keeping us up to speed on developments at the IMF World Bank Spring meeting. Now, the Western North region recorded an inflation rate of 67.3%, showing the highest regional figure for the month of March. This is far above the national inflation rate for March, which fell to 45%. Now, according to the Ghana Statistical Service, the rate puts the region ahead of other administrative regions for the first time since its creation. This is followed by the Bono region with 51.3%, influenced by non-food commodity prices. The following report has more.
March 2023 witnessed a fall to 45% as a result of some deflation recorded in food and non-alcoholic beverage subgroups, according to the Ghana Statistical Service data. The drop is significant due to the level of increase recorded by inflation some few months ago after it declined to 52.8% in February 2023. Government statistician Professor Samuel Kobuna Enim believes that the consumer price index has been consistent with the decline since the beginning of the year, a situation he attributes to many factors.
Inflation for the month of March 2023 stood at 45.0% for March 2023. This indicates a 7.8 percentage point drop relative to the rate that was recorded in the month of February 2023. In February 2023, we recorded a rate of 52.8, and in January 2023, 53.6. So we are seeing a sharper decline in the rate of inflation between February 2023 and March 2023, with a 7.8 percentage point drop between these two time periods.
On calls for reduction in transportation fares, Professor Enim explained that inflation on petroleum products has seen a significant reduction but is yet to reflect on other items such as spare parts, which contributes to transport fares.
But now transport is in the third place, following furnishing and household equipment. So to an extent we are seeing it, but for us to realize the full impact on transport, as I indicated, the drop in petrol and diesel should be transmitted to other components within the transport divisions, i.e. the cost of bus and trotro fares. So until that happens holistically, one should be very careful to say that if petrol and diesel continue to go down, ultimately we're going to see some lower digates or whatever target that we want to see at the end of the day.
The Greater Accra and Ashanti regions remain the highest contributors of inflation in the country.
An economist and research lead at GCB Capital, Courage Buti, is predicting inflation will be slowing down further in the coming months due to the base drift effect. Speaking early on the marketplace, he indicated that the downward trend is sustainable till the end of the year.
The downturn, see where policy rate is 29.5, very high. Until April, the reference rate was 32.7 or so. Yes, it has dropped now to about 25.7 or so percent, really. And you can see cost of credit within the banking system towards private sector, and of course, the average cost of credit was approaching the 40%. So really, cost of credit was very tough for businesses, very unfriendly. In the same period, also, the Bank of Ghana would not have the room to support growth the way they would have loved to if inflation allowed. And given government situation also, you would have had to cut back on discretionary spending, most of which go to directly target growth, really. And so it explains why the growth trend is slowing. It is not only for the period 2023, it started from second half 2022, and the leading indicators of economic activity as published by the Bank of Ghana shows that continuous trend of decline in the composite index of economic activity since that time. In fact, it's around 7.6% negative growth as we speak, really. And so it just confirms the general trend of negative or slowing growth that we have seen since half year 2022, and that trend is going to continue, particularly in a period where we are about to begin some front-loaded fiscal consolidation. You expect that governments tighten the fiscal stance a bit. You will not see a lot of discretionary spending going into the 2023 budget if the program eventually starts. The Bank of Ghana is agreeing to a memorandum for zero deficit financing, which means that if you are not able to raise the needed revenue from market, from taxes, and of course from the concessional sources, you may not have the Bank of Ghana backstop, really. So under these circumstances, growth will be challenged. And so I'm not surprised at all that the World Bank or the IMF is actually revising their growth down to about 1.6%.
We do some more stories now, and the International Finance Corporation has announced an investment in a risk-sharing facility worth $77 million for the Bank of Africa Group at a ceremony held in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. Reacting to this, senior country manager in charge of Ghana, Kyle Kilhofer, said this is to strengthen its portfolio of women-owned SMEs across all of its affiliates. Here's more.
It intends to make it easier for small and medium-sized firms, notably companies in unstable and conflict-affected nations in the Sahel, to access financing. By the agreement, IFC will contribute $77 million to expand Bank of Africa's lending to small and medium-sized enterprises, including women-owned businesses in several countries, including Ghana, Benin, Burkina Faso, among others. The senior country manager for IFC said his outfit is committed to expanding access to finance.
Small and medium-sized enterprises sometimes do find it more difficult to access to finance, to access services, to access partners, to access markets. And so we're keen on working with them to help get better at those attributes, but at the same time to do top-down, to help some local aggregators, whether they're financial institutions or agricultural processors or manufacturers that have linkages to these SMEs, help them develop and flourish here too, to help enable those small and medium enterprises connect to those larger aggregators. We've been adding staff over the last year. We've been trying to do more projects, but in sectors that are actually improving to be resilient or even flourishing in this current global economy. For instance, things like manufacturing, agriculture, things like the DTRT factory that we're going to see shortly, where we're creating thousands of jobs that didn't exist 2-3 years ago. And remember, if you create 5,000 jobs in a manufacturing enterprise, that's like creating 500 SMEs with stable, safe, reliable, foreign currency earning employment for Ghana.
Talking about DTRT, I've been quite following what's happening there. But some are saying, yes, it appears we do more of the exportation than keeping some of the staff in Ghana. Are there plans to also have some in Ghana?
More DTRTs?
Yeah.
Well, we're very keen on trying to do more DTRTs. Personally, I lived here and I worked here 15 years ago, 2006, 2010. And we were trying to support DTRTs back then, the apparel market. But quite frankly, you needed a critical confluence of global competitiveness, reliable power, good infrastructure like seaports, market access, things like AGOA, and good trade routes, and competitive workforce and stability. Other markets historically 20, 30, 40 years ago, like Vietnam, like China, like Cambodia, had these attributes. So we, IFC, we've been active in these markets around the world. Experience in those countries was profound, to see how manufacturing and manufacturing-led exports has provided stability to the economy, growth to the economy, more and better jobs, particularly better jobs for women. Okay, and large scale of exports. So, for instance, like in Bangladesh, 95% of the exports are apparel. Okay, and yet you've seen the GDP per capita grown to where it's now higher than India. Okay, and same thing in Vietnam, where they've grown up the value chain of export-led manufacturing growth, and just created more and better jobs.
A total loan portfolio of up to $154 million will be guaranteed for Bank of Africa Group, with loans going to companies in agriculture, trade, energy, and other industries.
Moving on, the Chamber for Young Entrepreneurs have bemoaned the complexity of Ghana's tax system. The Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber, Sharif Gali, disclosed that most SMEs want to be tax compliant but are frustrated by the tax administration system. He called on the Ghana Revenue Authority to review some of the tax policies to make it easier for startups and SMEs to be tax compliant. He's been speaking on Joy Business Social.
Our tax system is too complicated for SMEs to understand. You see, there are other countries that they have made it easy that you can even understand your tax compliance and pay from your comfort. But in Ghana, almost every SME, even the big ones, have to look for a tax, somebody an expert to now take them through, and that is money. So why don't you decomplex the tax system so that SMEs can understand? There was even a point in time we were arguing for a one flat payment. So you know that at the end of the year, I'm paying this and that is it. And then all of these varieties and calculations wouldn't even hurt the SME. And you know that you are paying this at this particular point. And make it quite very simple. We did our advocacy and it was always a good thing, but then it has to go through parliament. So yes, for complexity, it's very complex. Even myself, I have to employ other people to be able to educate me in my business. I'm a tech entrepreneur. And so for complexity, we've been talking about it here. And a lot of young people, I remember one of the cases, we were told that we don't like to learn. That's why we don't know about this. Tax it's not like we don't want to learn. We go to your website, we actually study everything there. But the problem is that understanding your tax, especially when it has to be business, is different from going to read. Right. We've done taxations in school, but it's not helping. So yeah, we need to really, I think it's one topic we can talk on one of these days. The complexity is what is driving away a lot of young entrepreneurs to be tax compliant. Yeah.
Now, government targets full participation of the private sector in its much-touted Gold for Oil program. Describing the policy as phenomenal, a Deputy Minister of Energy, Herbert Krapper, says it has introduced healthy competition in the petroleum sector. He believes increased involvement of bulk oil distribution companies could go a long way to increase yields as well as impact fuel prices positively.
I think it's been game-changing. I think it has been phenomenal. I think, as the Vice President describes it, it is out of the textbook thinking that has helped us to use gold, a resource that we have been endowed with, that we have mined for so many years, which is a good store of wealth, to use it to trade for petroleum products, which has a big impact on forex depreciation and forex volatility. And once we're able to use this policy, which is we are seeing now, to tame forex, and then it affects petroleum prices positively, and also the competition that it brings into the sector. I think it has been remarkable, and we'll continue to roll it out to ensure also that we bring in the private sector more and more into the policy, open it up to ensure the private sector also participates fully the BDCs, OMCs, they participate fully in this program so that across the board, across the spectrum of the value chain, everyone feels part of the program. And more importantly, the consumer feels cushioned by forex volatility.
Now, Polytank Ghana Limited is poised to give customers access to strong tanks to aid in the storage of water. It has therefore introduced its new Somo Super Tank. According to the executive director of the Muhinani Group, Ashok Muhinani, the new tank is durable and has a longer lifespan.
Tank Ghana Limited has launched its new Somo Super Tank as an addition to its water storage tanks. The tank has UV stabilizers that will aid the tank to withstand all weather conditions. Here is the executive director of the Muhinani Group, Ashok Muhinani, speaking at the unveiling of the new Somo Super Tank.
This is a new technology, and as we explained in the speeches and in the profile, this is a 3-layer which adds extra additives and health preservatives to give you a different dimension to the existing tanks on the market. So it's a different tank completely. It's a different technology, and you've got 3 layers to help with the various features we highlighted. We needed to try and do something innovative, and so we did a lot of research and we came out with this. So it was more innovation. The tanks in the market, including ourselves, have been there. And so what else can you do at value add? So this is our value add proposition, which we're launching today.
Chief Director of the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, Noah Tumfo, reiterated government's commitment to closing the gaps and addressing the shortfalls associated with providing Ghanaians with access to clean and safe water. The new Sumo Super Tank provides customers with 9 varieties of colors to choose from.
On that note, we end business tonight. But for more business news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com/business. I am Beverly Broohm. I leave you with news making headlines on the international front.